Hello, I am Earl from Earl's Meat Market, and today on our video series, Cut a Little, Save a Lot, we're going to show you how to cut a sirloin top butt. This is a beef cut. The sirloin is right before the rump, and it's between the rump and the T-bones. This is where the rump would be, and this is where the T-bones would start. So there's basically primarily two muscles to this primal, and there's the cap, and then there's the top sirloin, which is referred to as the top sirloin butt. So I'll show you how to remove them. Basically, there's always a large triangle piece of fat right in the corner. And so you just take your knife and you just run it on the seam. There's just a seam that goes between the two muscles, and cut it off. We'll come to that later. Now, while we got this, basically there is fat on it, so just take it and trim it to your liking. Generally, sirloin steaks are reasonably lean. Sometimes there's some skin on from the bone, and we call this actually bone skin. And you start cutting this way. You go into the sirloin butt from here, from the rump side. So the first one, as you can see, has a fair bit of gristle and fat. So we'll pull that off, save it for kebabs. Okay, we just cut through. These are roughly cut around about 1 inch. I would recommend 1 inch. As you can see, as you start getting into the steak, reasonably lean, lots of lean pieces on it. There's a couple of options when you have a steak like this. I would say roughly like a serving size might be cutting the steak into thirds. And now we just trim them up a little bit more where it's necessary. And these are your sirloin steaks. As you can see, they're quite large. When you're cutting them, you could cut them, the size of your palm. We get to this first end here. So basically, there's a perfect steak in there. So you just trim them up a little bit, and you just take out some of that fat and gristle, and you get yourself some really nice steaks. Okay, so now we'll get to the cap. As you can see, it's got quite a bit of fat on it. So we'll trim it up a bit. And the cap is often people come in, they want to smoke it. This is a great piece of meat for smoking. It's got a nice fat cover. It's got fairly good marbling in it. There's a fairly heavy membrane on here. We'll just keep trimming. You just have to cut that off. So if I was smoking it, I would probably stop right here. This is where I would leave it trimmed. And as I'm smoking it, I will most likely smoke it with the fat side up, so that as you're smoking, the natural fat can just baste it as you're going along. Now, for those of you that don't smoke meat or don't have a smoker, then basically what I would do is, these make great steaks too. They just have to be cut differently. So as you see, they were like, I cut these this way, right? This is where it was. But if you notice, the grain on this one runs this way. So that's why we peel it off, because if I would cut it with it on the steak, I would be cutting it with long grain fibers, and so you'd have, on every steak, you'd have a piece of it that was tough. So that's why we take this off. Now, if we're cutting steaks, you start on your fat end, and it tapers down. So we'll just straighten this out. So we got a nice straight edge. And then, again, about 1 inch thick, and just cut straight through. And you just keep cutting till you get to a very small end. And that's what the steak looks like. Now here, again, you just take it and finish it off. But those would be your cap steaks. And these are your sirloin, and this is what it looks like when you portion cut them. And this is how big they are when you cut them off the butt. So now, our trimmings. This is pretty much primarily just fat, so we'll put that to the side. And now we'll go after some of this lean. A couple of things we can do with it. I'm going to make this into stir fry. As you get good at this, you'll do this in about 10 minutes or so, right? And you've added value for your family in the different kinds of meals you can have. This is a large meal of stir fry, or maybe two. You've got multiple steak meals, and here, if you want, you can do these in steaks, or you could kebab them if that is something you want to do. I'll just take two of the smaller ones and just show you how to kebab them. You just cut all the fat off. I make my kebabs the size of something for 2 bites. So if you're looking for a cut of meat like this, come to Earl's Meat Market and we can help you cut a little and save a lot.